Hello. Welcome everybody. I'm going to present each of our artists. We're still waiting on the fifth one to show up. We're not sure if the weather has him slowed down. Hopefully he'll be here when we head over to the art building. But before I introduce everybody, I just want to take a minute to speak to you about how the show came about. It's been in the works for almost a year, maybe. And it actually started with my brother-in-law, Joe Kellum, said that there's this blacksmith I should look up over in Quincy, Michigan. And it ended up being Joel Sanderson. And I wasn't sure where he lived. All I knew were some details, one being that he drove a horse and carriage around town. And so when I was going through town, I'd always look to see if I could see anyone by this description. Well, I was with my middle son, Brady, and I was going through Quincy, and I saw a horse and carriage at the park. And I'm like, Brady, we're going to turn around and go back to the park. And he's like, what? I'm like, because there's somebody there that I think we need to meet. So I literally turned around and introduced myself to Joel in the middle of this public space, a park. He's just there playing with his daughter, Naomi, and he's probably thinking this girl is very weird. But anyway, that's how I met Joel. And then one thing led to another, which was producing an art show, a gallery exhibit that focused on metalwork and the craft of forging raw iron into beautiful works of art. And it's kind of, it's a form of artwork that's really gone unnoticed. The series Forged in Fire has brought a lot of notice to the idea of it. But what these gentlemen do is so much more than just make, weapons. They create masterpieces, mirrors, tables, lights, sculptures. So I will introduce them one by one. We have John Ryer, right here. We have Doug Thayer, Scott Langton, and Joel Sanderson. And Joel's going to come up and he's going to speak to you a little bit about the medium itself. I'm not exactly sure what he has in store for you, but I think it'll be about 20 minutes, so I hope you enjoy it. And please pay attention and learn so that when you go over to the gallery, you can maybe tie in what he's saying to what you're looking at. All right, so everybody welcome Joel.
Is this working? Is it on?
Did you turn it on?
How about that?
Yep. Okay.
Okay. All right. Wow. You're looking at me. I'm going to close my eyes here a minute. Go somewhere else. I want to get away from this microphone. Just let me get in my thoughts. Maybe somewhere in a meadow with some trees. Let's all close our eyes, everybody. Close your eyes. Let's get away from here. Beautiful tall grass, maybe some flowers. Prothonotary warbler singing their beautiful bird song. Maybe a willow flycatcher. Beautiful blue sky, spring day, warm breeze, puffy white clouds. Okay, open your eyes. What we just did, that journey we took with my guides, is the essence of all art. We look at art and we want it, we value it because of the experience it brings us. It's not because of its physical presence, it's because of what it does, how it moves us. That movement it determines how much we will want it. One of the most powerful, probably the most powerful art form ever is the movie. We go to a theater, we go there solely for the experience. There's nothing physical there we want to take back with us. It's just that experience. And it moves us to new places. We see new things, new worlds, and so on. Now, what a movie is three media. You have the pictures on the wall, you have the people speaking language, and you have the music. All three working together, all three media working together to create one direction. But the artists involved are guiding the audience. But you take any one of those and it can direct us without the others. Of course, the spoken language, books, writing, word of mouth stories passed on for generations have moved us for as long as it's been people. Pictures, of course, movies, you see pictures, they guide us. But the music too, it has no words, it has no pictures, but it still guides us and it leads us to places. Probably the most famous example of that is the very first performance of Igor Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring in Paris, 1913. It so moved the audience that they got frantic and they bolted, they left the theater. Now that's movement. Probably know what you want, but it really is power. Even with no words, no language. The more versatile the medium, the more it can say, the more it can do, the more you can communicate. Now if you take that symphony, with all the instruments performing that Rite of Spring, and you take everybody off the stage except the tuba player. He's up there, boom, 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 boom. It doesn't move you very far because it's just one voice. It can't say as much as if it had the full orchestra, right? Well, iron is the single most versatile material ever discovered. It can be soft, so you can just bend it with your hands, or it can be made so hard it can cut through iron. It can cut through itself. Stone can't do that. Gold can't do that. Only iron can do that. You look at the classic sculpture, like a stone sculpture, they're standing there with their arms like this because they can't do this. To hold up an arm with a torch takes iron. To have that strength, that structural integrity takes iron. Iron was first worked 7,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, and it's no coincidence that civilization and iron came together at the same time because it's so useful. It allowed us to put shoes on our horses so we can travel farther, make knives so we can defend ourselves against people who want to conquer our civilization. Needles, I don't know, everything. Not a person in here, I almost assure you, does not have some amount of iron. So what do we call the people who work iron? We're blacksmiths. It's a process where we heat the metal up, and then when it's hot, we can bend it, we can reshape it, we can smash it, punch through it. It's a very malleable metal when it's hot. When we think of a blacksmith, we generally think craftsman. We generally don't think artist, don't know why, because we're all artists. You know, we all went on that journey in the beginning here into the metal. So we all have that ability. It's wired into us to take that journey. We can't escape it. So why are blacksmiths, craftsmen, artists something else? Really, they're the same. But a craftsman and an artist pursue their subject from a different angle. In the end, they're overlapping all the same. A craftsman generally pursues their work based on an interest in the processes. You know, we're intrigued by, wow, I can heat and bend it. I can, punch a hole through a bar. Really, really cool stuff. Whereas the artist is pursuing the end result primarily. Might not even work the medium. Might not even, like say a sculptor, for example, in bronze, carved maybe out of wax, this nice carving. And then she sends that to somebody else to have it poured. Never works the material, focusing primarily on the end result and effect that the design has. Well, the craftsman, and from my personal history, the very first piece I made after I was working for enough people to feel I was confident enough to make my own work, the very first piece I made was a table. Big surprise. And it was very well executed. It was meticulously forged. I still have this piece, okay? Nobody ever bought it, all right? It was nice tapers, 4 legs, perfectly upset feet. An upset is where you take a bar and you hammer the end back, or you drive it onto an anvil and it mushrooms out again. That's an upset. Well, I did those so carefully. Each foot is just perfect. It had wonderful, fun mortise and tenon joints. Took the bar and boop, popped it open, passed a bar through, hammered it back, all this fun stuff. And it didn't cost very much. I thought, okay, $300, you know. So I put $300 on it, set it down, and nobody wanted this thing. It was immaculate, but nobody wanted it. Well, I made another one. I made that one even simpler, even better mortise and tenon joints. Little tiny bar with a bigger hole, bigger than the bar, passing through. Beautiful head on it, just nice. But nobody wanted it. So I kept doing this, kept making tables. And I was working on a job, just finishing up a job for some railing. Thank goodness I had orders coming in then because my tables were worthless. And I had this railing job, and it took me almost a year to get to where I was on it. It had beautiful arches, it had collars, it had rivets, mortise and tenon joints, it was really fun. It had leaves and flowers, but I was frustrated because I wasn't creating anything new. And I wasn't copying anything. All my pieces were original, but still I felt like I was contributing nothing. And I was talking one day to a good friend of mine and a mentor, Mark Matthews, amazing artist. Our studios were side by side. If you ever get down to Archibald, there's a studios there in town, look him up online, Mark Matthews. He's a glass worker, makes marble, brilliant man. Anyway, he and I were talking about this, and when I realized that I had made nothing new, I was beginning to grasp the concept that there's more to this than the physical presence. It was saying nothing. It had no meaning to people. So, my next piece, I decided I'm going to focus on the design first and let the elements, processes, merely support what it's saying. So I designed a table. I spent, I don't know how long, just designing this. I drew a full size on the floor, made paper and cardboard mock-ups to get the proportions just so. And I made it a butterfly. The wings held the top up, lower wings hung down, the legs came down. They were the legs that held the table. And I included every life cycle of the butterfly. The little copper balls representing the eggs, and this wiggly noodle, which represented the worm cycle of the butterfly. Of course, I had the butterfly. And then the top, I made an oval. And it was the first time I used granite. Excuse me. And I chose a granite that is called green Marinacci. And green Marinacci, I was told at the time, is a bunch of stones that were singular stones, and in the earth it was squeezed and it was formed into another rock. So it made a transformation, just like I was trying to represent for the chrysalis on the butterfly. So everything on this table had meaning. And it was pretty, but it wasn't complicated technically. It wasn't a matter of how I did it, but what it was saying. And so I put this in the gallery that had been carrying my simple, really meticulous, perfect blacksmith pieces that had been sitting there for a year, nobody buying at $300 a piece. And I thought, okay, this is all or nothing. Put a price on it, $7,200. Not that much money now, but $7,200. At the time I put it in the gallery, 3 weeks, it was gone. Not because it was a better piece, but because it meant more. It had more meaning. And you could stand in front of it, and it would give you an experience. So, from then on, I worked more towards design first, letting the materials support it second. And that is the transition from craftsman to art. Focusing on the experience and what it is saying versus what it is. In my experience, the higher percentage there is of meaning and the less of function, the more valuable it is, the more likely people are to appreciate it. And it's the same thing. It's just the meaning that gives value to pieces. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell. There's lots of processes I could describe how to work iron, but everybody's is different. There's so much variety in iron. You can machine it, you can cut it, like I said, iron, cut it, you know. I say iron, it's steel, but technically it is iron. Spring steel, for example, it's 1095 is a common spring steel. Less than 1% carbon, the rest is iron. When we talk about gold watches, that's less percent gold than steel is. So it's iron with just a little bit of other things added to it to make it have different qualities. So these pieces of iron that you'll see here in the gallery, they can do things and say things that no other material can do. They have the strength to hold things up. They have curved lines, which are the structural support. It can't be achieved in any other material. Only iron can do that. So stand in front of them and look at them. Just give them a moment. And let them carry you to where they're directing. Beyond the walls of the gallery. Because that's what art is.
Does anybody have any questions really quick for these gentlemen before we wander back over the gallery? No? All right. So if everyone wants to grab their coat.
Okay, I thought I was going to make a few remarks.
Oh, yes.
I
I'm
prepared
sorry.
some remarks for you.
I'm so sorry. God.
That's fine. And still on? Can you hear me now? Yeah, no, I don't think so. Joel didn't have it that close. It's just not on. How about now? No.
All right, let's try again. There, we have green.
Green light.
All
Uh-oh.
right. Got it.
Well, that's a tough act to follow. That was really great, Joel. Really nice. And there are whole books written on art as experience and art as communication, which are, fascinating. That where is the art when you hear a symphony, or the movie was a great example. It's not in the score that he wrote, but it's in the experience that the viewers, the people experiencing it, take home with them from looking at a Van Gogh painting or maybe a piece of ironwork. I prepared some remarks because I really didn't know what I wanted to say. So, what's a blacksmith in 2018? This is the age of 3D printing, mass production, and cheap disposable objects. From toasters to phones, even houses these days, not much that's made these days will last very long. I think that most blacksmiths, I think all five really in this exhibition, would call themselves artist blacksmiths. When we hear the word blacksmith in this country, most people immediately think of farriers, of horseshoers. It's a natural thing because that's in our culture. In truth, there's many different kinds of blacksmiths. It's a lot like doctors. We specialize in different things. There are farriers, of course, who shoe horses, and it's a very valuable thing. There are industrial smiths who worked in every factory in this country, more in the past, but still in some factories they keep blacksmith shops open to do production and help with the industrial production. So most of us these days, in this show at least, we make objects that are both artistic and utilitarian. These things can enhance everyday living in a way mass-produced goods never can. People like handmade things, that we have so many things that we get, but they're just all the same. It's the same as everybody else's iPhone. And, it's a lot of competition. The screens are, a very seductive interface for sure. But, do you need a hand-forged railing or a handmade table? No. But does it enhance your everyday living experience and make life better? I think so. It would, this is, so let's see, I'm not really following my script here, but that's okay. Now craft or skill is mostly learned through years of practice. And artists can look down on the skill part, on the craft part, and criticize that, saying, well, there's so much skill, and I can agree with this, but it doesn't have to limit the creative process. It can even aid to it. You can have both together. Creating an object which satisfies both the aesthetic aspects of a piece and functional concerns, it may not be easy, but the result can be really wonderful. The enhancement of everyday living by making things which are both beautiful and functional, it's very satisfying for me and for a lot of others, I think. Making things with both our hands and our minds at the same time is also a very satisfying thing. To work directly with the material, to take a piece of hot iron, to forge it and shape it, the spontaneity involved in that. They don't say strike while the iron's hot for no reason, because you must already have done your thinking. You've planned it, you come out, and then you work more on instinct, which our instincts are very strong, but in today's world we tend to discount our instincts and our intuitions and not use them, and we have to look it up and make sure that it's correct. But I urge you all to trust your instincts and trust your intuition, whatever it is that you're doing in life. Being a blacksmith is great because at the end of the day, you get to see the fruits of your labor. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. I think art is partly about communication, and it's a dialogue perhaps between the artist, the object, and the person viewing this, and the experience, as Joel mentioned, that comes from that. But if you have a great idea and you lack the skill, the craft, to execute it well, then your idea may not be successfully communicated to others. On the other hand, an object which is all skill and all craft, but is not well designed, is going to be a failure and fall short on those merits. So for me, I think we really need both. We need good design, we need good craftsmanship, so that the idea, which is very important, can be executed and therefore communicated to others. We as blacksmiths, we enjoy combining these things together, and it's a bit of a cliche, but we like to forge a better world through it, and it's a wonderful thing. I want to tell you about a painting I saw once in a museum, and it was a wonderful painting, and this is a university, and it's about teaching and sharing. And this was an old man with a candle. It was a painting by Goya, really dark and just dark. And so this old man is sitting at a table. He's got a long white beard. He's obviously not going to be that long for the world. And there's a little boy who's, the old man has a candle on the table in front of him. And the young man is lighting his candle from the old man's candle. And basically the parable is one candle can light 1,000 others and be in no way diminished. And we've all done teaching, and we pass this on. Blacksmithing is an old craft. It probably peaked in some ways 400 years ago, but in other ways, there's a real renaissance happening now. So by showing others and sending things along the way, it gets bigger and it gets better. In closing, I want to read you a short poem by Kipling. I don't have to read it because I know it. It was written on the wall of another blacksmith, a teacher who I knew long ago and is still around and passed a lot of good things on to us. So this is by Kipling, and it said, "Gold is for the mistress, silver for the maid, copper for the craftsman, cunning in his trade. Good," said the Baron, sitting in his hall, "but iron, cold iron, is master of them all." That's it. Thank you very much. There's just one more thing. Roxanne, I'd like to thank you for putting on this show and organizing it and hanging it. It looks great. Thank you so much for doing all that. And as a start of your collection, here's a rose.
I do apologize, Scott, that I was almost dismissing everybody, and we wouldn't have not been the same without that poem at the end. Nor I without my rose. So, John or Doug, would you like to add anything? Okay. Now we can go over to the